So welcome everybody to the July 10th, 2025 meeting of the Technical Advisory Council of the Confidential Computing Consortium. We're an open source organization that's dedicated to the acceleration of adoption of this important security technology. If you haven't been here before, you are welcome to join in the conversation at any point. We encourage constructive dialogue, whether it's in our open source projects or in meetings like these or in the different types of white papers or other artifacts that we generate. And if you haven't had an opportunity to introduce yourself in the past, in a few slides, we're going to have an intro slide where you can do that and hopefully help everybody feel more comfortable engaging casually here. Since we also represent a lot of different competing and partnering companies, we all abide by this antitrust policy, and you can read more about it at linuxfoundation.org/antitrust-policy. I think we've got a pretty quick agenda today. We've had a couple of speakers with talks lined up that have deferred for different reasons. So I think we'll get an update on the Cove architecture from Ravi in the next section, as well as I think the Manatee update. We had a slide in this deck, and I think still do for Manatee, but I think that's been deferred. I don't know if somebody on the call can confirm that. Okay, well, I guess since I don't see anybody from the Manatee team on, we're going to assume that that is correct, that that's been deferred. So our main topic of the day will be the OE SDK update from Radhika. So thanks for joining today, Radhika. And then we also will check in with some of that available time on the glossary, but that should still get us out of here a little bit ahead of schedule. Any other topics that people expected that they don't see on the agenda for today? Okay, we don't have votes, so I don't need to call attendance. Maybe one thing to point out is that we do have a new rep from Huawei, and I don't know if they will be joining us today or not, but that's a change. We've for many years had Howard as part of the group, and he's generally had to participate asynchronously given the time zone differences, but we appreciate his contributions and look forward to our new collaborator adding to the mix here.
Sorry, if I may, now may be a good time to point out that if you ever miss a TAC meeting and you're desperate to catch up, as why wouldn't you be, all of the recordings, and in fact the other SIGs, are on the YouTube, as I believe the young persons call it, which is great for catching up. I was doing that just today, catching up on some recent things, and from outreach as well, actually. So it's always worth going. It's pretty easy to find. Go to the Confidential Computing Consortium, and there's even a playlist for the different committee meetings. So if you haven't heard enough of Dan's lovely voice, you can always have it on the background as you go to sleep. It'll probably keep you awake because it's so exciting, but just so you know.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it's a great resource that we have, and I know that I've often pointed those out to new contributors so that they can come up to speed on topics. Rian also curates for us a playlist just for the TAC Tech Talks, so you can dive right into that material independent of the other topics as well. And that leads us to a good segue to, if there's new contributors on the call, you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself at least twice, feel free to come off of mute and let us know how you like to be addressed, where you're joining from, and your interest in confidential computing.
Hi, Dan. My name is Pierre. I'm from Hyperclouds. I'm a 4-decade experienced cloud engineer or DevOps, SRE, and CSP. I'm a CSP. And I was at the summit in San Francisco. So I want to participate with the the confidential computing consortium as much as I can. With the kata containers, Kubernetes, and all that. That's my. So I'm very glad to be here and to participate with you guys.
Well, that's wonderful. Thanks for joining us, Pierre.
Hi, Dan. I'm Sheldon from Sala Network. So yeah, I'm the lead researcher of the team, and now we are building a confidential container SDK called DStack. Yeah, and also now actually we are applying for to be one of the CCC projects. So yeah, so I'm very glad to be here and to learn all the progress and to share, for example, and maybe in the future to share our progress with all the people here. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. One of the things we love most are new project contributions. So we'll be looking forward to reviewing that. For anybody else who is interested in projects, I've got so many links that it's no longer helpful for me to have links, I guess. Oops, let's not lose the slides. If people are interested in submitting a project, we've got a whole project submission template here. It's very light. The short version of this is email what your project is to the TAC mail list. But there's some other detail in here. So
sorry. So yeah, I think yeah, I found one problem here is that I didn't know what's the TAC mailing list here. So so I have to send the email to info@confidentialcomputing.io. Yeah.
Okay, that explains it. That's a great catch. I wonder if we want to update that. So that this mail alias will go to our Linux Foundation PMs. So I believe that Rian and Renu may have gotten a copy of it, but we wouldn't have seen it on the TAC mail list.
And the other thing is you can always email either me or Dan, and certainly my email address is pretty much all over the place. And Dan, we can certainly help you through these things. I'll put my email address right in the chat at the moment.
Yeah, so a good first issue for anybody looking to help us with the governance is to update this so that we just list the TAC mail list instead of the PM reflector here. I think that would make more sense anyway. It's fine to send questions really to either list for people who are trying to figure out how to submit a project. But it's generally better than emailing to just Mike or I directly too, because you will get a lot more eyeballs by emailing it to the proper list. Especially if one of us or both of us ends up on holiday at the same time.
I don't think they allow that, do they, Dan?
There are international laws preventing that. That's true. Okay, well, thanks again for introducing yourself, Sheldon. Is there anybody else who would like to introduce themselves?
Oh, hi, my name is Wenhui. I might not be so new to attestation group. However, I'm new to the community. So I'm working on attestation and ID, which is in global ID, which is enabled by the remote attestation for the inference and also for MCP servers and agent-to-agent scenarios. I'm from ByteDance. Yeah.
From ByteDance. Okay, well, that's very topical work. And I heard you correctly that you're working on the IDE layer that's part of the is that the PCIe
Yeah.
class of specs? Yeah.
No, the ID, like authentication ID.
Oh,
distributed agents. Yeah.
I think
And tools.
ID. Got it. Thanks for the clarification there. Great
Thank you,
topics. Oh, and where are you joining from? If you feel comfortable saying, you don't have to.
Oh, you're joining from San Jose?
From San Jose. Okay.
Yeah.
You're welcome from San Jose.
Yeah. Hi.
All right, well, if anybody else later decides that they would like to introduce themselves, just feel free to jump into the conversation and let us know. Just a quick recap from the last meeting. We talked some about the summit, and then we had a tech talk from Usama that kind of ranged around a variety of topics. I think one of the things that sort of percolated out of that into the list a little bit more was the idea of location, and that as an attestable tribute. So that seems like an area for future discussion. And then we also touched briefly on the glossary, and we'll come back around to that a little bit later in the agenda.
So, Dan, I know I wasn't here for last week's discussions. One of the reasons I listened to some last time, but certainly the issue of location is one I'm very interested in discussing. So please let me know when we're going to do that, and I will very much try and be there for that.
Yeah, so I think it will be up to anybody in the community to pick up that conversation if they have a viewpoint that they want to lead. I think right now that's not a common, we haven't defined that as an aspect of confidential computing. So that would definitely require a lot more conversation. So hopefully we see more on that. We have 0 announcements for today. Which brings us right up then to Radhika's part of the agenda. So I will stop sharing in order to let Radhika take over.
Hello, everybody. I'm Radhika. I've met you a few times before. I'm joining from Microsoft in Redmond. Let me just try to find the window I want to share. Okay.
So we've gotten to hear from Radhika quite a bit over the years. The OE SDK is one of the first projects that we've had in the consortium, and one of the more mature projects with, I know, some commercial adoption, particularly inside of Azure. So little prologue as we get the material up.
Okay. Can you see my document at this time?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's good to be here. So I'll just go over the template.
So,
I think of all
Radhika,
the-
could you
Yeah.
just zoom in a bit? It's really quite small on the
Sure.
screen, please. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yep, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just go through the information that's updated since the project submission template was done, the initial draft, and since next year. Since last year. For the list of project official communication channels, there are no updates. We still use the mailing list that we've always used to communicate any changes. The list of third-party dependencies, there are no new dependencies. For the release methodology, we've stopped releasing on APT, but we continue to release on NuGet.org as well as GitHub. Our project mentor is Alec Fernandez, same as last year. In terms of progress towards the growth plan, the OE SDK currently has a 6-month release cadence. We're currently on 0.19.11. Releases are also made when there are CVEs fixed in dependent libraries. OE continues to be maintained, and there was an average of 3.2 commits weekly over the last year, up from the 2.3 commits the year before that. There were no CVEs reported in the last year, so we didn't make any releases for the CVEs. The cumulative number of contributors is 225. The project has been starred 1.1K times and has been forked 364 times. So the community that supports Opti Open Enclave SDK has shrunk, and the code is no longer actively maintained. We are going to be deleting the Opti code in Open Enclave over the next year. We don't have a community to maintain that any longer. All the current maintainers have completed the open source community orientation, and the issue tracking this has been closed. Over the last year, the support we've added for is for Ubuntu 22.04 because Ubuntu 20.04 was at end of life. We updated the OpenSSL support to 3.1.5. We also updated the SymCrypt support to 3.1.6 and then 3.1.8 and added an OpenSSL provider to interface with it over OpenSSL 3.1.5. And we've also updated tests to run against Intel's latest releases and updated attestation code to use the newest error codes released by Intel. With every release, we release development containers with the latest Intel PSW, so our partners who use OE can do so easily. At this point, OE SDK is not yet ready to move to the graduation stage. Our community of developers has shrunk. We're not doing new feature development. However, OE is continuing to be maintained for compatibility with Intel PSW, with Ubuntu, with Windows Server. OE SDK receives updates to address security issues and updates cryptographic libraries and dependencies to meet security standards. For budgeting purposes, the DL is hosted via CCC's groups.io site, and there are no new requests for budgeting. We display the OpenSSL best practices badge. I noticed that when I go to complete the OpenSSL best practices, I'm showing 84%, but the badge itself is still showing 75%. I need to figure out what that discrepancy is about. So currently, this should actually read 75%. I'll go and make that change before submitting this report to the CCC to be stored for future reference. And then the results of the license scan are as follows. We still continue to carry OpenSSL 1.1.1 because some of our partners have not been able to move to OpenSSL 3.1. So currently we are carrying both, and therefore we have Linux license scan issues from OpenSSL 1.1.1 showing up, and we don't have a way to mitigate that as yet. We hope our partners will move to 3.1 over the next year so we can get rid of OpenSSL 1.1.1. We are also, as I said, going to remove the code that supports opt-in the next year, and that is the rest of the issues that are there in the licensing scans that we've started. That brings me to the end of my document, and I wanted to know whether there were additional questions that I should address that you would have at this time.
Well, thank you so much for the thorough update. We have our normal annual review steps, which I believe you've covered, but let me just paste this from the governance into the meeting chat, and then I'll invite the other TAC members and community members to have any questions. I see Mike's already got his hand raised to prime the pump here. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so if you're happy to continue and there's nothing else you want to start with, Dan.
Nope.
No. Okay, so a couple of questions, minor ones. Firstly, what hardware are you supporting? Is it just SGX, or are you planning to do any others? I may have missed that if you said, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So we currently support SGX, and we also support attestation for TDX.
Ah, okay, that's great, thank you. And the other question was, you mentioned that your number of contributors has dropped. Is there how broad is the different set of companies or organizations they are part of, and also on the governance, or is it all still pretty much Microsoft these days?
So I would say the active community actually contributing code is mostly Microsoft. We have some contributions from folks in Edgeless, issues from, I think, folks in other companies like Signal. Our governance board has someone from Edgeless and someone from Intel. The person from Intel has retired. We are going to probably try to find somebody else who can take over their place. But I would say the active contributions are from Microsoft at this point.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you very much. That's everything from me, I think.
Well, one thing I'm curious about is the OpenSSL version.
Mhm.
So it's been a while since I looked at that because that transition was, I think, last fall. Am I remembering right? Or
Yes, I think you're right. And I think on Ubuntu 2204, OpenSSL 3 is inbox. So anyone using the latest Ubuntus would need to move to OpenSSL 3.
so could you talk a little bit about how you maintain security and balance that with customers who, for whatever reason, are on the old version of OpenSSL?
Yeah. So for OpenSSL 1.1, there are no open source patches being released, I think, as of now. It's not actively maintained. So we cannot maintain it beyond what the upstream project is maintaining. So our patches currently are to OpenSSL 3.1, and we sent out an email and open issues for the community to know that this is that they need to transition to OpenSSL 3.1. Is there any other suggestion that you have for us to get people to move off of OpenSSL 1.1?
I don't have specific suggestions other than, if it seems like it violates security best practice, but I know getting projects and companies to stay on top of patches and latest releases is a perennial challenge. I don't know if anybody else in the community has dealt with the OpenSSL conversion in particular. So I gather that's a no. So I guess we don't need to stay on that particular question. Are there any other governance questions from the TAC members or any other clarifications for Radhika today?
Just one, if I may, which is that have you considered, you may already have done it, I apologize if missed it, applying the OpenSSF baseline, which is considered pretty good practice for helping customers show that you've got useful processes in place. I suspect you already do, but it's a great way to validate it. And yeah, I think we're encouraging folks to do that. So if you haven't, please do consider it.
Okay, is that different from the OpenSSF best practices badge? Does that
It is different, yes. It
Okay.
is somewhat different. I can't talk in detail about the differences because I don't know one of them very well, but it is certainly worth looking at, and it shouldn't be very onerous. Yeah, please have a look. OpenSSF baseline, on one word, baseline.
Okay, thank you so much for the suggestion.
Yash?
The OpenSSF baselines are a minimum set of security requirements, whereas best practices track overall health of the project. Just for
Thank
context.
you, Yash. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
So I'll drop a link for that into the chat. We had a presentation from Emily Fox of Red Hat and OpenSSF earlier this calendar year, and we're considering what we do with that set of baselines from a governance process. But for projects to just go ahead and independently take a look at it ahead of any formal governance decision we make on it, I think that'll be helpful so we get feedback too on whether it seems adoptable and valuable and so forth. Alec?
Yeah, first off, thanks, Radhika, for a great and very thorough update. Appreciate your joining us so early in the morning, your time. Just trying to drill in a little bit on this OpenSSF baseline. Yash, do you happen to know if that delves into, for example, running the latest version of OpenSSL or TLS version standards? Does it go that deep? Would that in order to get this OpenSSF baseline approval, would it force us to deprecate older versions of OpenSSL? Is that the intent?
I'm looking at the baseline checklist right now, and it
I
doesn't
don't think it aims
mention
at those
OpenSSL.
sorts of
No.
things. It sort of
Yeah.
wants you to look at things like, what's your governance? How do you do security assessment? Are there ways of reporting problems? And what controls do you have?
Got it. So it's software development
Yeah.
lifecycle stuff, not
Yes, it is
specific.
really. Yes,
Yes.
it's more well, not just a life cycle, but the management of it. Yes.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay, and I mean, Dan, you raised a great point, and I just kind of want to take advantage of the fact that we've got a community here to ask some questions. We struggle with whether or not to make breaking changes that increase security, right? I know people at the top of our organization, right up to the very top, make bold statements like secure by default. And when a person says secure by default, that puts the onus on folks like Radhika to make very hard choices. If I'm going to make a default secure, then I'm going to make the default version be OpenSSL 3. And if a lot of times that means that clients are just flat broken, right? And so we always struggle with whether or not to encourage customers to upgrade to the latest secure versions of client libraries versus just cutting them off at the knees. If anybody has an opinion here on, or maybe some past
Alex,
experience on which way they've gone.
I do on a broader thing, and it's something that I'm involved with the OpenSSF Global Cyber Policy working group, which is looking among other things at the CRA, the EU CRA, which really does talk about these sorts of things in quite a lot of detail. I'd be very happy to engage with you there or here. Or maybe just the two of us to start with and decide if there's anything we should be bringing to this group. So if you'd like to talk about that, let's do so.
Yeah, let's do that. I think it's an interesting topic for the TAC, and it always comes down to, especially for sponsored projects,
Yeah.
they sometimes have to make very hard choices, and having some
why
sort
don't
of principles
you
or
and I
guidance
have
would
a
be helpful.
conversation outside of this, think about what we could bring to the TAC and what questions there are, and any suggestions we have, and then come back on another occasion. Does that work for you?
Yep, that works. Cool.
Great,
I'll be
thanks,
in touch. I'll be in touch offline.
Cool.
Thanks, Mike. In the meantime, I'll say that I think Radical will continue to support the versions of SSL that have not been deprecated within Microsoft. As Dan pointed out, we've got a lot of commercial users within Microsoft, and they're encouraged and usually obligated to move to secure versions of OpenSSL. So that happens pretty quickly, but the larger community sometimes takes a little bit longer.
Can have defaults without faults.
Well put, Dan. Well put. You have an affinity for quotable words. I'll use that one.
All right, good conversation. Any other topics here? Okay, not hearing anything further. Thanks again for another very efficient and thorough update, Radhika. And we continue to appreciate having one of our longest running projects adding value to the community here.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate this community and I like coming here every year to share.
Okay, now our next topic is just probably a fairly brief one, but I see Ishlal's hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the OpenSSL security maintenance. I was struggling to find the button to raise my hand, but yeah, here we go. If there are personal deployments of Ubuntu 2004 or somebody is using them in a home lab for up to 5 machines, they can benefit from extended security maintenance for 2004 with OpenSSL 1.1 for 7 extra years after the official end of life of LTS. So this is the extended security maintenance guarantee. If it is an enterprise customer, they can just purchase Ubuntu Pro. So we do backports of patches. We basically extend the security maintenance for up to 12 years. So I just wanted to put that out there. If anybody, for some reason, don't want to upgrade to the newer version of Ubuntu, they want to stay on 2004, they can do that securely still.
That's a really interesting word to use there, securely. So I guess the question is, do the patches bring the old version of OpenSSL up to the same level as the new one? And has the old version been deprecated by the community? I don't know, so I can't talk to Ubuntu's, I'm sure, absolutely fine work. But it's an interesting question from the point of view of a project. How do they sit in terms of that? Do they have to tell their customers they need to spend money? I don't know. It's just an interesting question. But thanks for that anyway, Ishmael. Very useful.
Yeah, usually what we see is, I don't think this would apply to this particular project, but some choose to offer it in an embedded manner. So it's just transparent to the end user. It's just a matter of good IT practices. But if it's visible to the end user, they would have to be made aware of it, of course, to decide whether they want to upgrade or stay. It's a risk assessment exercise.
Exactly. Thank you. Really interesting.
And sorry if maybe you just said it, but I was thinking about I think there was a comment that OpenSSL, the earlier version of it is no longer maintained. So does that mean that Canonical is patching it in a fork?
So whenever there is a CVE that is touching a newer version of OpenSSL, the Canonical security team, they assess whether the end-of-life OpenSSL version that we have shipped with an LTS is impacted, and if that, then they make sure to still backport the patch to that OpenSSL, which is not maintained by upstream. So we make sure we maintain it instead of the upstream community. And then we have some large enterprise customers who can even sponsor, if they find a CVE in an end-of-life supported the OpenSSL version, they come to us and they sponsor us to fix it. And then we offer that fix for everybody else, even if they haven't paid for it. So we continue to maintain stuff after it has gone, I don't know, end of life in the upstream communities.
That's great.
Actually, that speaks to OpenSSL 1.1 because we got a lot of questions about its end of life. So if anybody is interested, I will drop it in the chat.
Yeah, please do. Go ahead, Radhika.
Yeah, so inside the enclave, one constraint that we have is we have to use an open source version of OpenSSL. So we'll have to pull it from github.com/OpenSSL/OpenSSL. So the only way for us to have a patched version of OpenSSL 1.1 is if that gets maintained. Yes, thanks so much for sharing that. On the host side, Canonical maintaining it is tremendously beneficial to folks who use Ubuntu Pro. Thanks.
Exactly, and I'm sorry to stay on this a bit longer, but for Azure, I know we have commercial agreements and you should be able to use Ubuntu Pro everywhere that you want, basically. So please do make use of it.
Right, except inside enclaves. That's the problem.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I love the open source magic here, the live collaboration on work between multiple companies here. All right, and with that, maybe we switch to the next topic, and I'm going to call on Alec here in a minute, that we have the glossary. And I think where we left off was, is this still valuable to the community. It was an effort that we initiated roughly a year ago, I think in response to questions from the Cloud Security Alliance. And I believe Alec was going to take a look at whether that was still relevant to them.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to have to punt on that a little bit here, Dan. The last two meetings that we've had with the CSA, which are biweekly meetings, have gotten canceled because of, you know, conferences and so forth. So haven't had a chance to follow up with them on that. This is a tough issue because there's no doubt that there's benefit there. So it would be great if we could get some sponsors that would have time to maintain that. But the original sort of volunteer who did the initial work no longer here in the CCC, so we can't lean on her. So I think what we're going to have to do is decide how hard it is, how much it's needed versus whether someone has the cycles to actually grow that that list. Make a hard call. So I'll report on that once we have a chance to speak to the CSA and see if any of the deep links into that glossary have made it into the cloud controls matrix. If they have, then I think we have to leave the links that are already published alone because we don't want to break them, but maybe just kind of retire the project and not continue to expand on it. Not retire it, but
Yes.
graduate it.
Yeah. So we can always archive a repo, and I believe links will still work as the archival process doesn't change the URL. It just marks the project as no longer maintained, and you can't push things to the repo any longer. But that would still be an awkward situation because, you know, it's clearly not maintained then. So I think it would be nice if we want to branch predict that glossary is going to be useful, not just to CSA, but potentially to others. So if people want to take a look at the terms that are defined there now, I've dropped the link for that into chat. If there's defects with the definitions, let's get them proactively fixed. There's missing critical terms. I don't want to create more maintenance burden for us by, you know, increasing the list. We're not sure if we're going to maintain, but if there's critical things missing, it doesn't hurt to get a PR up and start to get some of that content in place so we can think about the full scope of the activity in front of us.
Sounds good. I haven't looked to see if there's issues reported. If there are issues reported, I'll take a look at that. I'll go that far and see if there are open issues. I'll do that here in real time and let you know in a minute. Kind of while we're talking about the topic, I was, after our spirited discussion of TCB during the TAC meeting last time, I actually started looking around, and the term TCB is defined in the ISO vocabulary, which I thought was neat. So that's, you know, another good resource. I haven't deduped to see if the terms that we have in our CCC vocabulary have been picked up by ISO, but that's another good thing that just occurred to me. So I'll take a look at that and have a better update once we've talked to the CSA.
Great. And I can save you 10 seconds. There's really not much for issues on the glossary repo. There's one about payloads, but I think the workload identity SIG would probably have an opinion on that. So I see Mark's on the call, but anybody else could take a look at that as well.
Yes, we always have an opinion on that.
Right.